Hello and welcome back to the Jigme Kelsang Show. If you're new, welcome. Today I'm proud to bring on a very special guest, one soccer writer and analyst. Oliver Platt is virtually sitting down with me this afternoon to chat about all things soccer. Oliver, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. I mean, I know that these are busy times for you guys as analysts, and covering the window of Canada soccer, and it must be an exciting time as well because they're just about to clinch a World Cup berth for the first time since 1986. Now, I'm not trying to get my hopes up, but I mean that's the confidence that Canada fans are giving off right now. I mean, how do you see that right now?
Yeah, I think they're going to qualify. Obviously, Wednesday night they're going to have a chance potentially to secure qualification. It's a bit of a long shot because they need other scores to go their way. But the chance is there, and then certainly if it doesn't happen, then in March, in the 3 games to come in March, they don't need many points now to confirm their place in Qatar. So yeah, it's exciting for sure, and they're first in Concacaf, and leading the way right now.
For sure. I mean, how do you really see the recent success that they've been having during these qualifying games?
I think it's something that we've seen building for a while, right? With players like Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David coming through, there's a talent level that's there that hasn't been there in the past, not to this extent. But I don't think anyone could have predicted just how well they would do in these qualifiers. I think we all hoped that they'd have a chance of qualifying and a good chance. But again, to be in first place, to be undefeated through 10 games, to have beaten the United States, beaten Mexico, gone on the road to those teams and got ties in their own stadiums. The way some of the individual players are playing, and not just the big stars, but a ton of players throughout the roster. I don't think anyone could have really predicted that it would go this smoothly and this well, and they'd be in such a strong position right now.
For sure. I mean, you talked about at the beginning the rise of Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David. How much of an impact has David made in the replacement for Alfonso Davies, who's been battling with some issues recently? So, I mean, can you speak on sort of the rise of those two?
Yeah, they've both been outstanding, and at different times, which has obviously been important because, like you said, with Davies not there right now, it's been even more important for David to step up and to deliver, and he's done that. He obviously was scored that fantastic goal in Honduras, which was crucial in that game. And then I thought he was probably the man of the match against the US the weekends, right? So like he's on 4 goals, 3 assists, I think now through the 10 qualifiers, which is the most goals and assists of anyone in CONCACAF. So he's been fantastic, particularly recently. And then earlier in the qualifiers, Davies stepped up, and particularly in that Panama game when he was incredible. So yeah, I think that's one thing that obviously you want your best players to be your best players, but those two I think have gone above and beyond expectations, and to do it at such a young age makes it all the more impressive.
But yeah, I mean, let's not mistake in the fact that Kyle Lauren has also been on the rise too. The way that he's been performing on and off the pitch, his sort of mentality that goes into a big game like the Hamilton game against the United States, sort of, and we've heard all about it from commentators and analysts who are calling that game. The U.S. were sort of flat in that game. They weren't really generating much. They were, getting shots on goal, but it wasn't anything that could distract Milan Borjan to really knock him off his game. It was sort of his kind of comfort zone, if you want to put it that way. I mean, hometown guy, you're coming home to play a big game for a big time moment and a chance to basically solidify your spot in the World Cup. I mean, how has he responded during this window and to help Canada really solidify their name in Qatar?
Yeah, he's been fantastic, and I think quite a late stage of his career. Obviously, in his 30s now, he's playing the best he's ever played for Canada, and I think he's credited a lot of it to John Herdman, the coach, and I think Boyan was one of those players who, in the past maybe came into Canadian camps and wasn't that impressed with the kind of professionalism and the standards that existed, at least not compared to what he's used to playing at a high level in Europe, where the pressure is really intense. And I think when that's the case, it's easy to not play to your best, right? And to slack off a little bit, not really give it, your whole effort and total seriousness. And I think Herdman has come in and completely transformed that environment. It's much more professional now, much more of a high level comparable to the top clubs around the world. And players like Boyan are coming in and taking it seriously and really believing like they can be part of something special here now. And that's really motivating them to take their game to another level.
Certainly, and I was just coming off an interview with Christian, um, and we were talking about the same thing. I mean, John Herdman and the work that he's done to really help develop these players. I mean, can you sort of speak on how impactful John Herdman has been to these guys, and to really help them catapult themselves into a conversation of, okay, now these are contenders. This could be a serious team that can really make some real noise in the World Cup.
Yeah, it's hard to really know where to start, because he's made an incredible impact across the entire program, right? First with the women, and now with the men. You can't really question the job he's done. I think he would tell you himself that he's come into situations where he's had some really special players like Christine Sinclair on the women's side, and now obviously players like Alfonso on the men's side as well. But the knack he has for being able to really unite a group and create a sense of purpose and meaning to what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to do, and the way that then gives players a real ability to elevate their game beyond what they've been able to do before, because they are so focused and so motivated. I think he's world class in that aspect, the mental aspect of the game. And then on the more kind of soccer and tactical side as well, Canada has become such a flexible team, so unpredictable. They can go to different places and play in different ways, different styles, and he really hasn't got a whole lot wrong at all during these qualifiers. So yeah, he's doing an outstanding job.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, but also let's talk about Priestman. I mean, what a marvelous job she's done with the ladies. We look at Christine Sinclair and how she was honored with the award by FIFA.
Mm.
Um, I mean, that's got to mean a lot for Canada soccer. Just coming off something so momentous, winning the Olympics in Tokyo. And sort of, I think that was sort of the moment that it was kind of the wow moment of fans going, okay, so this is a serious squad now that wants to really make a conversation. So I mean, even the fact that Lorenzo Insigne in Toronto FC, and how big of a signing that was to really create the advertisement or promotion for the 2026 World Cup, right? I mean, that's sort of the signings I see it as. Lorenzo comes in with the skill. He may be small, but he's really, flexible with his skill set. So I mean, how impactful could this be to Canada soccer to have these momentous signings that could really catapult themselves into a really, really good conversation?
Yeah, I think it's all like a really good virtuous cycle, right? What the national teams are doing is definitely generating a ton of attention and real growth for the sport. You see some of the TV audiences for the gold medal game at the Olympics was huge, and then now some of these qualifiers as well are getting watched by lots and lots of people. That's only going to grow as the men actually go to the World Cup, and then the 2026 World Cup comes around, obviously hosting that as well. So it just builds and builds and builds. And I think that, that encourages the clubs like Toronto FC to invest money and to spend money on big name players and try and capitalize and be part of that momentum themselves, right? As things really take off in this country. So I think Bill Manning said it himself that, he was looking at a couple or a very bad year from Toronto FC, and he's looking ahead to 2026 and Toronto hosting World Cup games, and he wants the city and the club to build up to that as a real soccer city, and big signings like Insigne are part of that.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, when we look at, the 2026 World Cup, I mean, what sort of expectations do you feel that they're going to make preparations for in terms of the World Cup? And sort of, also what the preparations that you expect from them as they try to manage to qualify for the World Cup too.
Yeah, I think it was important to them to qualify for this one because I think they really wanted to end that kind of wait for a World Cup by actually qualifying, right, going through that process rather than being given an automatic spot as a host. Also, this is the last 32 team World Cup, and it goes up to 48 teams in 2026. So the bar to qualify becomes a bit lower. So it was an important kind of target, I think, for them that they qualified for this one. And then we'll see beyond that, right? Like I think Canada can absolutely be competitive at the World Cup this year. I think they can, of course, I'm not going to say they're going to win the World Cup or anything like that, but they can win games. They can really compete like the US and Mexico have done against some of the top teams in the world. And then, like I said, we'll see what happens transitioning to 2026. It's almost difficult to predict because there's so many good young players coming through in Canada. You don't know what the team is exactly going to look like that far down the line, but I think it'll be exciting for sure.
Especially with, like, even in this nation, most people are interested in basketball and hockey, and obviously soccer has been around for a long time, has been a popular sport. But let's put it this way: do you feel that now that Canada soccer has really solidified their name, do you feel that they have now become a more popular sport than basketball and hockey combined, or has it been really close these recent days?
I don't think we're there yet. I think hockey is still going to be, it's difficult to kind of knock off the top spot, and it will take a generation or even more than that, I think, to change that. But I think definitely, you look at Canada as a country, right? And there's a lot of people who have come to this country from different parts of the world, and in those different parts of the world, whether it's European countries, whether it's African countries, like someone like Alfonso Davies, South America, a lot of these places are countries where soccer is the number one sport, and so they brought that with them, and they brought the interest in it with them. Um, and I think I think things like the media and stuff like that are maybe a little bit slow to catch up to those shifts in society and in the population. But gradually, we're starting to see, that shift that I think will happen to soccer and basketball in particular. Start to take place, and when the team is as good as this, it becomes pretty much impossible to ignore.
Hmm. And when it also comes to the joint host of the World Cup in 2026, how huge of a moment and cultural shift will it be for the nation?
Yeah, huge. I think you look back on a lot of countries that have hosted the World Cup, and it's been a really big moment in changing kind of the status of soccer in those countries. Obviously, we look back at the '94 World Cup and what followed in the United States after that, forming MLS, and the growth we've seen since then, and what soccer looks like in that country now is completely different to what it was before '94. So Canada's not hosting the entire World Cup, so I don't think we can say it's going to be quite of that magnitude. But I think that, again, how exciting this team is playing in 2022 and then having some games in 2026 as well, it's going to change things in a way that is difficult to really even put in words. It will be really significant.
And I had an interview today with Canada Soccer President Nick Bonton,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about how inspiring will it be for Canada to motivate and inspire other young aspiring athletes who want to be like a Christine Sinclair or be an Alfonso Davies. So can you speak on sort of how this sort of run will inspire so many other generations of soccer players to join, Canada once in the future, and really help them maybe even win a World Cup in the future, right?
Yeah, I think naturally when you have superstar players that like Canada has now on the men's and the women's side, and they're achieving big things at Olympic Games and World Cups and things like that that again are being watched by millions of people in this country. Naturally, kids are going to be in front of their TVs and seeing things on social media and picking up on that and just identifying these people as idols, right? And people they want to be like and emulate in the future. And so it's just about from from our point of view as a country, and Canada Soccer as a federation, and all of the different parts of Canadian soccer, is then making sure that we take advantage of that and harness that. And that means giving or making sure that there's as many opportunities as possible for kids to play soccer in a way that's accessible and not expensive. And then for the kids who really have an aptitude for it, for them to pursue it as a career, right? And that's when you start to get into, bringing in the Canadian Premier League, bringing in a women's league in the future as well. We've got to create those pathways to actually make the most of the enthusiasm that I think already exists and will only get bigger in terms of young people playing the sport.
For sure. And, concluding on one last question here, I mean, what are some of the objectives Canada need to achieve to remain at the top of the table in these last two windows?
Yeah, I think that their goal is to go through the whole octagonal, all 14 games unbeaten. So I think that's what they'll stay focused on. El Salvador is going to be tricky. It's a difficult away game, but if they can win that one, then they're all but qualified for the World Cup, and the pressure's off in those final three games. So I think obviously they'll look forward to coming back to Canada. We're not sure where it will be played yet, but coming back to Canada to play against Jamaica in March will be a big one for sure. And look, with this group, maybe other teams, when they've qualified or pretty much guaranteed qualification, they might take their foot off the gas a little bit, but I don't think these players will. I think they'll want to really see out this qualification campaign as strongly as they can.
For sure. I want to thank you again for taking the time out to speak with me. I know these are busy times and still exciting times as well. I'm not going to mistake on that. And I mean, I hope you enjoy these last qualifying window games. I mean, it's going to be quite a moment for Canada, and I know that they're watching, and I know that they're hoping for that miracle and that clinching moment of finally and the breath of relief. Since 1986, they've never done it. So, I mean, thank you again for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yes, it's going to be a special moment when it's finally confirmed for sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right.
That was the writer and analyst for OneSoccer, Oliver Platt. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're new to my podcast, feel free to check out my show that is available on all podcast streaming platforms. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes right here on the Jigme Kelsang Show. Until then, have a great day, and I'll chat with you soon.